I stood at the threshold of the house we once called a home, my suitcase sitting upright beside me like some silent witness to the quiet unraveling of a life. I didn't plan for this to be the moment I left, not really. I always thought there'd be some kind of breaking point, a fight, an ultimatum, a scream, something loud and unmistakable. But this wasn't that. This was stillness. She was in the kitchen, a soft beam of late afternoon light draping across her back. The sun lit up her hair the way I used to love. Once upon a time, that sight would have pulled me toward her. But now it only made me feel like a stranger in someone else's memory. She didn't see me standing there. Or maybe she did and just didn't care. Her tablet was propped up on the counter, and she was scrolling through something with a small smile curling at her lips. The kind of smile she used to have when we were just falling in love, private, effortless, and not meant for anyone else. Except it wasn't mine anymore. I hadn't seen that smile in months. These days, if she smiled at all when we were together, it was stiff. Measured. Then a message popped up. I didn't need to see the full thing to understand. Can't wait to see you again, Rehart. Just like that. Casual. In asterisk, mate. Barefaced. She didn't flinch. She swiped it away with the same bored grace someone would use to silence an alarm. Then she laughed. Actually laughed, not the polite kind she used around me lately, but the genuine, throat-deep kind that used to echo around our kitchen when we'd dance barefoot on the tiles. She laughed at something on her screen while I stood at the door like a man who had already vanished. I wondered how long it had been like this. How many weeks or months I'd been fading in the background, being replaced not just in her affections but in the very fabric of her routine. I'd been holding on out of muscle memory because the version of us I kept clinging to had expired long before today. I bent down and zipped the last suitcase. She didn't notice. I waited for some reaction. A glance. A question. Maybe a "where are you going?" But she kept tapping away on the screen, now typing something, her thumbs moving fast. The tap-tap-tap sounded louder than it should have in the silence. She was smiling again, and I wondered what he said this time, the other guy. The guy who got the messages I used to get. I wondered if she told him about me or if I was just a vague inconvenience in her stories. My roommate. My ex. Maybe I'd already been erased from her narrative. Maybe that's why she didn't seem surprised that I was packing. I stepped out of the living room and back into the hallway one last time, slowly scanning the house like I was trying to remember the floor plan of a life I'd be walking away from. There was the dent in the wall from when we tried to hang the oversized mirror. The scratch on the floor where she dropped her keys that one time after a fight, back when arguments still ended with tears and makeup **X, not distant silence. All those little marks we left on this place, each a memory I wasn't sure I wanted to take with me. I let my fingers brush against the edge of the shelf near the doorway. A small framed photo still sat there, the two of us on our 3rd anniversary, sunburned and smiling by the coast, arms tangled together like we didn't know anything could go wrong. I left the photo exactly where it was. No big goodbye. No letter. No confrontation. Just silence. I reached for the doorknob, fingers shaking just a little. Not with fear, but something heavier, grief, maybe? Or maybe exhaustion. I'd been carrying the weight of pretending for so long that even walking out felt like a quiet rebellion. Not against her, but against who I had let myself become in this marriage. Numb. Passive. Muted. I took one last look over my shoulder. She was in the same spot, barefoot now, sipping tea from the mug I gave her last Christmas. The one that said "good vibes" only in gold cursive letters. Ironic. She was scrolling again, laughing quietly. She hadn't noticed the bags by the door. Or maybe she had and was simply choosing to ignore it the way she'd been ignoring everything else lately, the missed conversations, the tension that sat between us at dinner, the nights I stayed late at work just to delay coming home. Maybe she thought I didn't have it in me to leave. That I'd keep enduring the slow erosion of love because I'd done it this long. But she was wrong. I opened the door. The hinges creaked slightly, a sound that used to bother her. She once asked me to oil them, remember? I never did. Funny the things that feel unfinished. Cold air swept in from outside. It was late autumn, the kind of air that bites your skin but wakes you up. I picked up the suitcase and stepped through the threshold. For a split second, I thought I heard her call my name, but it was just the wind catching the door. Or maybe wishful thinking, like some small part of me still wanted her to fight for us. To say, don't go, or at least, why? But there was no voice. No plea. Just the soft click of the door closing behind me. And that was it. No scene. No slam. Just a man and a suitcase and the final sound of a door closing on a chapter that had long since ended. Outside, everything looked the same. The neighborhood was quiet. Lawn still mowed, porch lights flickering on. From a distance, you'd never guess that a life just quietly crumbled inside that house. No flashing lights, no drama. Just one more guy walking away from something that no longer saw him. I stood on the porch for a moment longer, not really sure why. Maybe waiting for her to realize. To chase after me. To say it was a mistake, that she didn't mean for it to go this far. But nothing came. Just the distant sound of a neighbor's dog barking. I walked to my car, popped the trunk, and hoisted the bag inside. My hands were steadier now. The ache in my chest wasn't gone, but it was manageable, like a song you've played so many times you stop noticing the lyrics. I slid into the driver's seat and stared at the house one last time. Still no sign of her at the window. I started the engine, let it idle, then pulled away. And just like that, I was gone. She wouldn't realize I'd left until the next morning. Or maybe not even then. Maybe she'd wake up and assume I'd just gone out for a drive. Maybe she'd check her messages and laugh again at something someone else sent her. Maybe days would pass before she asked, "Where is he?" But by then I'd be long gone. Long gone and already forgetting what it felt like to be invisible in my own life. The road stretched out in front of me, a long, gray ribbon disappearing into the horizon. I didn't have a destination in mind. I just drove. Past gas stations, past diners with flickering signs, past places I didn't recognize and didn't care to. My hands gripped the wheel loosely, but my mind held on tightly to every memory it had spent months trying to ignore. The thing about betrayal is that it rarely screams. It whispers. It shows up as missed glances, as vague answers, as changed routines. It doesn't barge in like a storm, it creeps in like fog. And that's how it started with her. At first, it was small. Harmless even. She started dressing differently, nothing overt, but different enough that I noticed. Lingerie she never wore with me. New heels. Perfume that didn't match the bottle sitting on her vanity. When I asked, she smiled and said she just wanted to feel good again, to do something for herself. I nodded. Encouraged her, even. Because I thought that's what supportive husbands did. But then came the silence. She used to laugh at my dumb jokes. I mean really laugh, that full body, throw your head back kind of laugh that made me feel like the funniest man alive. But at some point, the laughs became smiles. Then smirks. Then nothing. I'd be telling a story at dinner and look up to see her scrolling through her phone or staring past me. And when I asked what was wrong, she'd say, "Nothing. I'm just tired." Tired. That word became her go-to. I started to believe it. That maybe she was just worn out from work, or life, or something I couldn't fix. But then I noticed the late nights. The ones that didn't make sense. The business dinners that suddenly popped up, the happy hours that weren't so happy when I asked if I could join. She'd always have a reason. "It's just coworkers," or "It's kind of a team thing, you'd be bored." I told myself not to push. I didn't want to seem controlling. I didn't want to be that guy. But something didn't sit right. Her phone used to be just a phone. It sat on the counter or on the nightstand. Now it was always with her. Always face down. Always silent. Once I picked it up to hand it to her, just to hand it to her, and she snatched it like I was holding a live grenade. "Privacy," she said, like that explained everything. I nodded. But that word lingered. Then came the canceled plans. We used to have a standing Friday night ritual. Nothing fancy. Just takeout and a movie. But one Friday she said she had to work late. I believed her. Then it happened again. And again. And again. She started scheduling things on Fridays. Girls' nights. Networking events. Even a spa appointment. I didn't think much of it, not at first. But I started to notice that she always came home glowing, like she'd spent the night somewhere better than a cubicle. One night, a friend texted me. "Hey, is that your wife at 9th and Vine?" 9th and Vine was a wine bar downtown. Trendy. Romantic. Not exactly a place for solo drinks or post office meetings. I texted her and asked how work was. She replied, "Exhausting. Just heading home." No mention of wine. No mention of Vine. I didn't confront her. Not then. I told myself maybe she just needed a moment to herself. But I couldn't stop the questions piling up in my head. When did she stop asking how my day was? When did she stop touching me without pulling away? When did her laughter shift into sighs? I started keeping mental notes. Nothing obsessive. Just patterns. Like the way she always had a reason to leave the room when I walked in. Or how she started locking the bathroom door again. Or how she flinched when I kissed her neck, like the place that once belonged to us had become sacred to someone else. I thought maybe I was losing it. That maybe I was the problem. That I'd become too clingy, too needy, too suspicious. She told me that too. "You're being paranoid," she said one night after I asked if she was okay. "You're acting weird." Weird. That word stung. Because what I was acting like was someone who was starting to realize he was being lied to. It's funny how self-doubt creeps in when you're gaslit just enough. You start blaming yourself for being insecure. You second-guess your instincts, your gut, your observations. Every red flag becomes a maybe I misread that. But I didn't misread it. She was pulling away. And someone or something was pulling her in. I remembered how she used to leave notes in my lunch bag. Just dumb little messages. Don't forget to smile today. You're stronger than you think. I love you more than coffee, and that's saying something. They stopped one day. Just stopped. And when I asked her about it, she laughed. God, you're so sentimental. As if that was a flaw. The more I thought about it, the more I saw how many things had changed without either of us admitting it. The spontaneous touches. The way we used to say, I love you, without prompting. Even the way we made coffee in the mornings. She started drinking almond milk even though she hated it before. That detail stuck with me. It was small. Petty maybe. But it meant something. Someone had introduced that change. And it wasn't me. There was one night, the night everything shifted for me, when she came home humming. Not a song I knew. She had a new glow to her, one I didn't recognize. I watched her take off her coat, toss her heels aside, and float through the house like she belonged somewhere else. I asked her where she'd been. She said, out. Just that. No explanation. No invitation to ask more. I nodded. Said okay. That's when I knew. She didn't lie to hide anymore. She lied to end conversations. And I was letting her. Because asking meant hearing answers I didn't want. Because I wasn't ready to lose her. But sitting in that car, 100 miles from home, I realized something brutal I already had. She wasn't mine anymore. Not the way she used to be. Not in the way that mattered. She might still wear the ring. She might still come home. She might still say good night and see you tomorrow. But the part of her that used to reach for me in bed at 2 a.m., that used to text me when she saw something funny, that used to ask if I was happy, that part had already left. And I had pretended not to notice because I was afraid of what it would mean if I did. But now I couldn't unsee it. The distance. The deflections. The silence. It wasn't just one thing. It was a pattern. A slow, calculated reprogramming of our life together. She had trained me to expect less. To stop questioning. To accept I'm tired and it's nothing and you're imagining it. And I had trained myself to believe her. But not anymore. That was the moment it all crystallized. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't jealous. I wasn't overreacting. I was a man watching his marriage unravel thread by thread while being told he was holding the scissors. And I was done pretending. The first message came 2 days after I opened the cloud folder. Simple. Blunt. Where are you? No punctuation, no warmth. Just that flat tone she always used when she was annoyed. I stared at it for a while, then closed my phone. A few hours later came another one. So you're just going to disappear? And then a third, angrier this time. You're being dramatic. Can we talk like adults? That was the part that made me laugh, not because it was funny, but because of how predictably ironic it was. She wanted to talk like adults? Yeah? After months of treating me like a background character in her life? I didn't respond. I wasn't trying to play games. I just didn't see the point in pretending we were still speaking the same language. Besides, I already knew how the script went. I'd seen this movie before, the one where the cheater blames the one who leaves. Where the one who finally says enough gets painted as unstable, reactive, unkind. A few hours later came a long message. One of those digital monologues people send when they feel the story slipping out of their hands. She said she was shocked I left. That I blindsided her. That she thought I was mature enough to talk things through instead of running away like a coward. Coward. That word stayed with me longer than it should have. Because it hit on the exact thing she'd spent months building, the idea that I was weak. That I was too sensitive, too insecure, too emotional. That all of this was in my head. So of course, in her version of events, I was the one who cracked. I abandoned the marriage. I overreacted. And honestly, I expected it. What I didn't expect were the justifications. A day later, she sent another message. Softer this time. Calculated. I never meant to hurt you. I just felt so alone. You stopped trying and I didn't know how to fix it. That was her angle, now rewriting the narrative, so I was the one who checked out first. I didn't answer. I just read it over and over, dissecting the phrasing like a detective looking for a hidden we *p***n. You stopped trying. Not we. Not I. Just me. She had recast herself as the woman abandoned. The one left behind by a distant husband. The one who had no choice but to find comfort in someone else. I started documenting everything. Not for revenge, but for truth. For defense. For when the story inevitably made its way to mutual friends or family. I didn't want to engage in gossip or smear campaigns. I just wanted to have the receipts when the gaslighting came back around. Because it always does. I began taking **TS, her messages, her missed calls, the timestamps on the cloud photos. I pulled financial records, the weekend charges from out of state, the hotel bookings, the Uber trips that contradicted her claimed locations. I even saved our old calendar invites, the ones where she'd claimed to be at work conferences while she was clearly with him. I wasn't building a case out of bitterness. I was building it out of necessity. Because I knew what came next. She would say he left me. She would say he refused to communicate. She would say he was emotionally distant for years. And people would believe her. Why? Because she knew how to play the role. She was always charming in public. Thoughtful. Warm. The kind of woman who remembered birthdays, brought wine to dinner parties, smiled when people were watching. Me? I was quieter. More private. The guy who listened more than he spoke. The one people described as nice, but not much else. She'd win sympathy with ease. And if I stayed silent, she'd own the version of our story people heard. But not this time. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to shout. I was just going to keep the truth. Preserved. Untouched. Documented. That's how I protected myself, not with rage, but with receipts. The next few days were surreal. She kept messaging. Her tone swung like a pendulum. 1 hour it was fury. The next pleading. Then guilt. Then icy detachment. You owe me a conversation. I made a mistake, but we can fix it. If you'd actually been there for me, this wouldn't have happened. I still love you. I stopped checking them after a while. Not out of spite. Just fatigue. Every word felt like a chess move. Like she was less interested in healing and more interested in controlling how things looked. It's strange how quickly someone you once trusted can morph into someone strategic. Tactical. Like a politician trying to spin a scandal. I kept thinking back to those early days when everything was new and light, when we used to stay up all night talking about music and stupid childhood memories. When she used to look at me like I was the safest place in the world. Now she looked at me like a problem to be solved. The idea that she could hurt me so deeply and then immediately shift into reputation management mode broke something in me. Something fundamental. It wasn't even the cheating anymore. It was the rewriting. The casual way she tried to frame everything to suit her. Like I was a chapter she could edit after the fact. But I wasn't a chapter. I was the whole book she threw away. And I was finally starting to write a new one. I met with a lawyer the next morning. His office was clean, efficient, clinical. No small talk, no drama, just paperwork and facts. Exactly what I needed. He asked if I wanted to file immediately. I said yes. Do you expect pushback? He asked. She'll fight the optics, I said. Not the outcome. He nodded like he'd heard it 100 times before. I handed over the flash drive. Told him to make copies. He flipped through a few of the images, scanned the timestamps, then set it down gently. You'll be fine, he said. Just stay quiet and document everything. Exactly my plan. That night, she sent me a voice message. I didn't open it, but the preview showed the first few words. I don't know why you're doing this. I didn't need to hear the rest. I'd heard it all before, just in different clothes, with different inflections. The roles had changed. I was no longer the husband. I was now the scapegoat, the villain, the man who walked out for no reason. I could already hear it in her voice, even without pressing play. She had rewritten the story. And in her version, she was the one bleeding. That's why I never responded. Because I knew nothing I said would matter. Truth didn't mean much when someone was trying to rewrite the past. But I had the truth. Quietly preserved. Unfiltered. And that was enough for me. It was a Thursday afternoon. Cloudy, quiet. I was sitting at the edge of the bed in the Airbnb, staring at the same 4 walls I'd been staring at all week. There's only so much you can do before your thoughts catch up to you. I was flipping through the photos again. Not because I needed to, but because I still didn't believe it, not fully. The images felt like they belonged to someone else's life. Someone else's heartbreak. Not mine. And then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. No spam label. No scam warning. Just a regular number I didn't recognize. For a second, I thought it might be her. Using someone else's phone now that I wasn't responding. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me to check. The message preview showed one word. Hey. I opened it. Hey. I'm sorry to text out of nowhere. My name is Jeremy. I think we need to talk. I stared at the screen. Jeremy. The name meant nothing to me at first. But then the dread settled in. The tattooed guy from the photos. The one wrapped around her in that hotel room. The guy who had unknowingly sat beside her while she dismantled my life in real time. I didn't respond. Not immediately. A minute later, another message came through. I didn't know she was married. There it was. Just like that. A sentence that flipped the entire narrative upside down. This wasn't some secret affair she tiptoed through guiltily. This wasn't stolen glances and risky encounters behind closed doors. She hadn't told him about me at all. I wasn't even a footnote. I was nothing. A ghost she didn't mention. I waited. Watched the blinking dots as he kept typing. She said she lived with an ex. Just roommates. I found out yesterday. Friend sent me your profile. I didn't even know your name. I didn't know how to respond. Or if I should respond at all. I wasn't angry. Not at him. He didn't know me anything. In a twisted way, we were both just casualties of the same lie. Victims on different sides of a story we didn't sign up for. Finally, I typed back. How long? He replied within seconds. For months. Maybe 5. Off and on. Mostly weekends. Trips. My stomach turned. Not because I didn't expect it, I did, but because it confirmed something deeper than cheating. It wasn't just that she lied. It was that she erased me. From her life. Her stories. Her world. She had built an entire version of herself that didn't include me at all. In this version, she was single. Independent. A woman just splitting rent with some guy she used to date. No strings. No ring. No guilt. She had replaced reality. I thought back to all the times I asked her where she was going. Who she was texting. What time she'd be back. She would roll her eyes, accuse me of being controlling, insecure. And the whole time, she was living another life with another man who didn't even know I existed. She told me you were possessive, he added. Said you followed her once. That you made her feel unsafe. I read that line 3 times. Couldn't breathe. Unsafe. That's the version of me she handed to him. A controlling, suspicious, unstable guy who couldn't let go. Not a husband who was fighting to save his marriage. Not someone who noticed the silence and wanted to understand it. No, I was a threat. An excuse. She didn't just lie to me. She *p*nized me. I felt sick. Not the kind of sick that passes. The kind that roots itself in your chest and wraps around your lungs. Jeremy sent one last message. I just wanted you to know. I'm out. I blocked her. I'm sorry, man. I didn't reply. What could I say? He didn't know me his apology. She did. And I knew I'd never get it. I turned my phone face down and sat there for a long time, letting the truth settle like dust after an explosion. She had rewritten the script so thoroughly that the man sleeping next to her, holding her, traveling with her, didn't even know her husband's name. He didn't know I existed, because in her story I didn't. And that was the moment it truly hit me. It wasn't the affair that broke me. It was the erasure. Because cheating is betrayal. But pretending someone never existed? That's annihilation. You can't even be angry in the normal way. There's nothing to confront. No face-to-face. No final argument. You've already been replaced in the story. You're not the husband. You're the guy in the background of the first chapter, forgotten by page 20. I sat in the dark for a while, not thinking, not crying, just existing. I didn't know how to explain it to anyone. I didn't even know how to explain it to myself. I kept going back over the past year, remembering every time she accused me of not listening, of being cold, of not trying hard enough. She had built a new world, and I wasn't part of it. She had looked me in the eye every day and pretended I was still in the story. Meanwhile, she had already cast someone else and was shooting scenes in another location. And now I was watching the credits roll for a movie I never agreed to star in. That night I couldn't sleep. Not because of the rage that had already dried up, but because I realized something terrifying. I didn't know who I'd been living with. Not truly. I had known a version of her. A curated version. The one she showed me when it served her. But the one that lied, that manipulated, that crafted entire falsehoods about our life to justify what she was doing. That person? That was a stranger. And that stranger had my wedding ring in her jewelry box. The next morning, I walked to a cafe and sat there for hours, watching people pass by. couples holding hands, friends laughing over brunch, a mom helping her kid tie his shoe. All these people moving through life, oblivious to the quiet detonations happening inside the hearts of people like me. I opened my phone again. Jeremy's messages were still there. I saved them, added them to the growing folder of proof, not because I needed them for court, but because I needed to see the truth written out plainly. I needed to remind myself that it wasn't all in my head, because for months, she had been training me to doubt myself, convincing me that my intuition was paranoia, that my concern was control, that my questions were attacks. But I had been right about everything. I texted my lawyer, "Add this to the file." Got a message from the other guy. She lied to him too. He replied, "Got it. You okay?" I didn't answer, because honestly, I didn't know. I met my lawyer on a rainy Monday. Clinical, straight to business. No dramatic stories, just dates, signatures, evidence. The paperwork felt colder than I expected, like we were closing a business, not a marriage. The day before filing, she left me 6 voice messages. First was anger, then guilt, then begging. I didn't listen past the third. I went back to the house one last time to grab what was left. It was empty, stripped of warmth. Just one cup on the counter and a note. Took the groceries. No apology. No name. I dropped the key on the shelf and left without turning around. I moved to a city she once hated. Too noisy. Too alive. It suits me now. My apartment is small but peaceful, without compromise or reminders. I stopped checking her socials not because I had to, but because I forgot to care. The ache dulled into something manageable. One day in a bookstore I talked to someone new. Not a date, just connection. No pressure. No damage. I realized then, I wasn't waiting for closure anymore. I was the closure. And in that quiet way, I finally came back to myself.